What's your definition of success? Has a game made it when they're known throughout the world? When the game is the #1 seller? When they have an annual release of a new title that just regurgitates the same old formula as the previous year, often only sporting the same old tired gameplay loop disguised by a fancy display of graphics or nostalgia baiting? A video game doesn't need to be mainstream in order to succeed. If that were the case, there wouldn't be any indie games or indie studios. AAA titles often don't even need to be a good video game in order to succeed. They're peacocks. They're all for show, tricking you with their fancy animations, high production budget and fancy graphics, which is often just blinding you with god rays and sprinkling some depth of field effects here and there. That's why, especially these days, AAA games like COD and Battlefield need an annual release, because after 12 months people finally start to realize how bad the games actually are. Because underneath all the pretty graphics and impressive tech, it's just a hollow, passionless, often unbalanced mess of a video game.
Overextended.
Don't get me wrong, a lot of popular AAA games are executed brilliantly and you can actually see passion in them, but for the most part, these AAA companies don't need to do anything special in order for us to consume. The same can't be said for indie games, unfortunately. An indie game's success, for me anyway, is tied to its execution and how well I can feel the developer's passion. Think back to any indie game you've ever played. Think back to the little details and how much they drew you in. The animations, the environments, the interaction with those environments, the music, the voice acting, the storytelling. I can feel the passion the indie developers put into their game. All these things tie together to create an immersive experience you often don't get with AAA games. Which brings me to Insurgency Sandstorm and the reason why I made this video. Insurgency Sandstorm doesn't need to be mainstream in order to succeed. I'm so sick of people saying things like, oh, Insurgency Sandstorm won't last on consoles because Battlefield is right around the corner, same with Hell Let Loose. Huge titles can obviously be damaging to other games' sales potential, but that often only occurs when both games are within the same, playing field. Sandstorm and Battlefield are completely different games and you need to let them be their own video game.
Alleyway or is he going road?
Well, he shot me
I have no idea where he was.
back of alleyway. So he's
What a fountain. Of course it's a fountain with the fucking sass.
Oh, fucking leaked.
Stale.
Care heaven, our heaven.
Got him. Oh, they're heaven. Fuck.
Good effort.
Please stop, game. Please stop.
Yeah, I can see you fucking tripping over your shoelaces or something. Damn, it's fucking.
What the hell?
It hurts me to see it.
Oh, what is going on?
Insurgency Sandstorm has had a rocky life so far. Poor optimization, a complete disregard for competitive modes, controversial additions that casualize the game, a slow release of content. Although the content this past year has actually been pretty decent and it's all been free. We've seen plenty of new weapon additions, maps, attachments, a game mode, community involvements in the form of mods and map contests, bug fixes, although there are still a lot remaining, and an optimization patch here and there. Now, I haven't been around since the beginning. I did purchase Sandstorm when it first released, but I didn't play it for too long. I was new to PC gaming at the time, and obviously just new to hardcore shooters in general. None of my homies wanted to play it with me, and honestly, I was just having a rough time getting into it. So I gave up. I pushed it aside and went back to playing Battlefield. About 9 to 10 months later, I started to get bored. Although Battlefield is a, decent game, it looks nice, plays relatively okay, but everything just feels so cheap still. I really don't know how else to word that, so I started to look for something else to play. That's when I stumbled across Insurgency Sandstorm again and realized how special this game really is, despite all of its flaws. God, I whiffed. I think the one thing the majority of the community can agree on is that Sandstorm has near perfect gunplay. I have honestly not played a shooter with such refined gun mechanics before. It's responsive, challenging, satisfying, and has a perfect balance between arcade and realism. My aim isn't at the mercy of a suppression mechanic. My bullets don't deviate and I don't have to unrealistically lead a target. Your aim is directly tied to your ability to control the recoil and track your target. And that's how it should be. I should be rewarded for being mechanically better than my opponent. I pull the trigger, you die. Simple. The gunplay in Sandstorm got me hooked. I couldn't put the game down for weeks. Clicking heads, long distance sprays, yeeting people into the shadow realm, turning people into fucking mush. No shooters on the market make it feel this good, let alone any indie shooters. So for that aspect alone, Insurgency Sandstorm sucked me in, but that's not the only appealing factor Sandstorm has. The graphics are beautiful, although they're not photorealistic like the Uncharted series or have major destruction like Battlefield, the graphics still draw you in and immerse you in the environment. Its color scheme is generally just like a mix of browns with a few greens sprinkled here and there. But if I were playing a game called Insurgency Sandstorm and I was in environments with high contrast and vibrance, I'd be sucked out of the experience immediately. A lot of people hate this aspect to Sandstorm. People are tired of being in a fictional Middle East where all there is dirt and rubble, but I don't mind it personally. Although in a future title I would love to see a game exactly like Sandstorm but in like a modern setting, in a fictional city with urban areas. Sandstorm's environment, although very dull at times, is full of life. Bullets cracking past your ears, deafening explosions, gunships above you mowing down your teammates, airstrikes, explosive drones, explosive bodies. But it's also the little things. It's the way fire spreads, the bullet holes in the wall, parts of the environment you can interact with, the entrails spread across the floor, the blood splatters on the wall, the sound of someone's head exploding, the reload animations and sound design. These things draw you in and make you remember the game. I love hearing a strafing run. I love the sound design of every weapon, glass shattering, doors being kicked down, and one of the most heart-pounding things about Sandstorm is its voice acting applying pressure to the situation.
Yes! I fuck your sister!
When you're the last one alive, your character will cry out for help, only having it fall on deaf ears. If you're lucky enough to survive a bullet, your character will scream in pain. Sprint for too long and you'll start choking and breathing heavily. Have a friendly die right next to you and you'll yell out to notify your teammates. Sure, games like Battlefield have gorgeous, large-scale destruction that is pretty remarkable, but it's still all so, like, synthetic when you accompany that with the rest of the game. Let's take a look at Battlefield's newest title, Battlefield 5. It's been out for a couple years now, but 2042 isn't out yet to make this comparison. All their guns sound the same, they're not unique, they're not heavy, and they don't sound at all like I thought they would.
I need to reload!
The same goes with their environment. Does this look like I'm in World War II to you? Forget how pretty the graphics are for a moment. I don't feel like I'm there at all. Now, I don't play Sandstorm or Battlefield to be immersed. It's not a huge deal for me, but that's not what I'm talking about here. It's about what the game is trying to make you feel and what it's trying to portray. Battlefield 5 tried to make you feel immersed in World War II and it failed. Sandstorm tries to make you feel immersed in fictional locations and it succeeds because of its superior sound design and attention to detail and passion. Since we're on the topic of Battlefield, I want to talk about something that has been bugging me for a while. I briefly mentioned it in the beginning. There's no doubt that Battlefield 2042 has generated a lot of hype. But what I don't understand is how people can say things like, oh, Sandstorm won't last on consoles because 2042 and Halo Infinite is just around the corner. You guys realize that more than one game can exist at the same time, right? Why can't you play both? Just because one game exists doesn't mean you need to give up on the other. Sandstorm is a completely different game to Battlefield and Halo, which will obviously attract a different kind of player base. The game might never be as popular, but it doesn't need to be. Maybe Sandstorm will always be that niche little game that has a small yet passionate community that love it to bits. Does that mean it's failed? No, not at all. If you can consistently find full servers, is the game really dead? I'm so sick of the gaming community being so hard to fucking please, and too ignorant and entitled to realize what they have right in front of them. Sandstorm might not be the perfect game, but for a $40 game made by a small indie studio that gives us multiple free updates, we really can't complain about much. Sure, sometimes they go radio silent, don't patch certain bugs and make some mistakes, but what company doesn't do that? This past year has been rough with COVID and I can't imagine how hard it would be on a small studio working from home whilst also trying to get this console port out. All I'm saying is that you can be frustrated at NWI, but don't lose sight of what we actually have here. It's one of the best shooters on the market that is unfortunately overshadowed by a lot of hollow, watered down AAA trash. Sandstorm isn't for everyone. It's a hard game to get into, but once you break through that barrier, you will realize what everyone is talking about and you'll wonder why you haven't played this game all these years.
Yeah, I think Bez has got his set to like X or something.
Jesus.
I'm all in myself.